Hello and welcome to Around the Clock. I am excited to have my first interview back in the studio. We are here with Deborah Burke Henderson. Deborah, welcome to Around the Clock.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Great to be here.
Welcome back to our studios.
It smells fresh and new.
So we are here to talk about a book that you've authored, a children's book called Lilius Aventura. But before we get into the book, Deborah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, great. How long have we got?
A couple minutes. Give us the highlights.
All right, the highlights. Well, I've spent a wonderful 33-year career in public relations in a number of amazing nonprofits in the Boston area, including the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange, the American Heart Association, Morgan Memorial Goodwill Industries. It's been fabulous. I ended my career in PR at SAD, their national headquarters. Then we're in Marlborough, now in Washington, D.C.
And remind people what SAD is, because we're not sad.
Thank you. I was going to. Yep. SAD started as Students Against Driving Drunk, but they then transitioned to Students Against Destructive Decisions. So I worked there for a good dozen years. And then I left SAD and started writing actually for the local town pages here in Ashland.
Nice.
And the corresponding local town pages in Natick and Norwood and other locations, and a couple of other papers, and wanted to make some time for my own personal writing. So that's when I started writing haiku and free verse poetry, which I'd always written, but I now was concentrating time, and this first published story, Lilius Aventura.
Okay, so this is, I read it twice. It was so fun. Because what I realized when I first was reading it, I was just, reading it like an adult. I was reading all the words. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I need to look at the pictures as well.
The pictures are great.
So what's interesting is, as I read it, there's some Spanish in here. So what made you write it from that perspective?
Well, a couple of reasons. I wanted to introduce the folks that were reading this to a few Spanish words that are very easily understood in context. And in some cases, I had the Spanish word and then the English word. So there was no problem in understanding what the Spanish word meant. But I just think it's important to share the sort of the inclusivity feeling, sharing a little bit about another culture. And Lelia was actually inspired by my piano teacher. I started learning piano a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
Didn't know notes or anything, but she took me under her wing. She is of Argentinian descent and had a beautiful relationship with her grandfather. And that was the initial inspiration behind my character, Lelia. And she teaches Spanish at a local elementary school in Framingham. She's a music teacher as well. And she's going to help me translate Lilius Aventura into all Spanish with a few English words.
Very nice.
And I'm very excited about that. It's my next project with her.
Okay, the other fun thing I liked was all the facts about the different bugs. What made you decide to talk about bugs like that?
Well, I'm a former teacher, way back. I taught high school at Laconia High School in Laconia, New Hampshire. And I've always loved teaching and mentoring other people. And I've loved, obviously, the experiences I've had with teachers and mentors. So it was really felt important for me to impart some information and some facts. So I actually took an online course in the fall of 2020 during the pandemic, how to write a picture book through Writer's Digest University. A teacher named Holly Adler. And her challenge was, okay, so you create a character and in one sentence, let the audience or your reader know, who the person is and what their flaw is or what their problem is that's going to be worked through in the story. And it just came to me. My muses were working with me, and it came to me and I said, Lelia is afraid of bugs, especially ants, spiders, and caterpillars. They all have so many legs. And I didn't know a lot necessarily about those three different types of bugs. But again, the teacher in me said, well, I'm going to create a little fun fact for each one at the back of the book so that everyone can learn a little bit more. And I've had so many people tell me, so many adults tell me, I learned about things that I didn't know, that ants were one of the strongest creatures in comparison to their size in the world. And so that's been fun, that people are learning from this book as well.
So what was the process? You said you took a writing course in 2020.
Yeah.
And it obviously gave you the idea for your book. It's now April 2022.
Yeah.
From April 2020 to here, how did it go from the idea in your head
Sure.
to this lovely book that we see in front of us?
Thank you. It was a fun process. I spent a lot of time writing and rewriting, as writers always do.
Yes.
I had to create a dummy for the book. So I had to, and children's books are typically 32 pages long.
Okay.
So I had to make sure I had the right number of words on each page, and then think through what my illustrations might be. I have an artistic background myself, but creating several characters, I thought I need a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that there is a very interesting website called Fiverr, Fiverr. If anyone watching does not know of this resource, and has a lot of talented artists and illustrators and professionals. And I spent quite a bit of time scrolling through the thumbnail picture that each artist shares. And I came upon one and I said, that's it. I like the colors, simple, bold lines. It just had a feeling to it that spoke to me.
Nice.
So I'm very much an inspirational writer anyway.
Okay.
So when I get that kind of spark and there's that connection for me, I know I've got to run with it. So I got in touch with Omar. I don't even know Omar's last name. I still don't know Omar's last name.
Doesn't
I've been
matter.
working with him for like 6 or 7 months. He lives in Pakistan. I didn't find out until the end of our time working together that he has a 2-year-old son and a wife. But he loved the story. And I told him I love the thumbnail picture that I saw online. I want something like that. And I told him, these are the characters. And the first time he created these characters, he initially created Lelia, the grandfather, and Lelia's older brother, Francisco. And I have to tell you, Yolanda, I couldn't believe it. They were beautiful.
Wow.
They just felt right.
Nice.
And I told him, this is amazing, Omar.
Right.
This is wonderful. I love your characters.
Right.
I said, but there are other characters in the book, so I need to come up with a couple more. Mama, the mother,
Yep.
and the little brother, whose name is Joaquin. And again, he produced the next slide that he sent me of those characters. I thought, wow, you are a very gifted, talented young illustrator.
Nice.
So he created those characters for me, and we had some fun because he only is conversational in English.
Okay.
And of course, I don't know any, I think it's Udu. I'm not even sure how to pronounce his native language. But in one of the illustrations, Lelia and her family are having a picnic, as you saw.
As I read, yeah.
And little ants are crawling up Lelia's leg. And the first illustration he sent to me, the ants were crawling up her arm.
Oh.
And I said, well, I love the look, but the ants need to be crawling up her leg, not her arm.
Yeah.
So we had this sort of
Yeah.
anatomy lesson in email or online.
Oh my gosh.
With the time difference.
Oh my, yeah.
If I'm sleeping, he's awake.
Right. Right.
So we very infrequently did we actually say hello to each other at the
Right.
same time. But, and then I've got Abuelo, the grandfather, is brushing off the ants from her leg. So the next illustration I got from him, Abuelo had a hairbrush. And he's brushing off the ants. And I'm like, okay, I am working with someone from another culture. We don't know a lot about each other's cultures.
Right.
So, and I said, this is very sweet, but I don't want somebody reading this book to think, I'm never going to use my hairbrush again because it might have bugs in it. So I said, I can't do that. But it was funny. It was very cute to look at. But so he made the change. So we went through a lot of those kind of interesting back and forth experiences. Yeah. But he was wonderful. And I told him what I had thought of for a cover. And he created 4 different covers for me. And one was close. So we worked on that one a little bit. So once he had finished, during that time, he was working. I was also researching publishing a book on Amazon through their self-publishing software called Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP. It's really very easy. They need a source file from the illustrator that's in a PDF format of all the interior pages, and then they need one PDF of the front cover, the spine, and the back cover. And this little one is so small, there's really not much of a spine there. The things I've learned, but there's a back cover. And I wrote a little bit, a synopsis of what the book is about. So if someone were to pick this up in a bookstore, they'd go, yes, that's what this is about. Okay, easy. So I got the source files from him, and I went through very carefully. I think I took 2 or 3 days to make sure I was following each direction with the software program. And there was an opportunity to review it. And then I held my breath and hit, send. And so it's a print on demand. So whenever anyone orders this book on Amazon.com, or through my website, but it still is on Amazon.com that these are sold, it will take a few days to receive it because they're printing on demand. So you've got a fresh copy coming to your door. Yeah.
Now, if someone were interested, I believe you said there's a couple of copies at the library here in town?
There's one copy at the library, although I might give them a few more. But I met Louise McAuliffe, the children's director, and she was so sweet, and we had a lovely conversation. She actually encouraged me to meet up with you.
Yes, we just interviewed her back a couple months ago about her books.
I was able to watch that, and it was wonderful. Good. And I told her that I really enjoyed her segment. So I really appreciated that. It's amazing when you connect with people that they're just so generous and open. And she, obviously, as a librarian, has a connection with librarians throughout the state of Massachusetts. And after she read the book, she told me she was going to put a blurb in that online newsletter.
And encourage more libraries to pick it up.
Yes.
Very nice.
That was so wonderful. So I obviously donated a copy there, and she was thrilled with it. And
Very nice. Very nice. Well, it's always interesting to me how the authors that I interview get to this point and how they publish or what they do. You're the second author that I've worked with, actually the third, who has self-published. So Lois from the library did it.
Yes.
And then there was a young woman that we interviewed last summer, and she had also self-published. So it's a possibility. And I think that's the other thing I love is sharing that there's so many people who have stories to tell.
Yes.
And now there are so many different ways of getting your story out there.
Well, and at my age, I did a lot of research about traditional publishing. And it looks pretty complicated. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I thought, you know what? I want this to get out there.
Right.
So I thought this made sense. And there's no cost involved with the publishing via Amazon.
Right.
Omar, obviously, we had a contract, and of course I paid him for his work. And he's excited about working with me in the future with other projects that I have in mind. But what's nicer than being able to do something like this for free? And one thing that I'd love to mention, Yolanda.
Please do.
I've been a nature lover all my life, and a portion of every book sold is going to support 2 great charities. The Nature Conservancy, which happens to be mentioned in this story, and the Environmental Defense Fund. And they're both organizations that are fighting climate change, and they are working to support the vulnerable wildlife and their habitats. So I'm really excited because I am, this week, going to be writing a check for $150 to each charity. I'm going to send them a copy of my book with a letter. And I'm just very, very excited. One of the hard things, obviously, when you self-publish is that the marketing is all up to you.
Yes.
And My husband's getting tired of me telling people in the grocery store that, have you got a child this have you got a 4-year-old?
Well, hopefully this interview will help spread the
I
word
would
to
love
people that this
I
book
would
is
love
out
that.
there. I don't have children this age, but I know a few people who do, so I will definitely be sharing the title with them.
Wonderful.
And so thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Before I let you go, though, and if you watched an interview that you're not as surprised about this, is there something about you, Deborah, that not many people may know that you'd be willing to share with our audience?
Well, there was a write-up recently in the local town pages. So one of my fun facts about myself was going to be that I created the Wednesday's Child program on Channel 4. Some of your viewers may have already
probably
heard that.
read that, yes.
Although it is one of the proudest things, one of my proudest accomplishments, along with Lilius Aventura. But the other fun fact, and my stepson will get a kick out of this, when he was 15, when he learned that I went to Woodstock back in the day.
Wow, okay.
I bought a ticket, and my girlfriend and I drove to New York, and we went to Woodstock. Wow. And oh my God. I will say, however, that I was only there for a day. We called home. This was long before cell phones.
Yep.
We called home to check in. She wanted to check in with her parents, and unfortunately found out that our father had a heart attack. So we immediately got in the car and went back home.
But you can say you were there.
But I can say that I was there.
That's pretty cool.
And I did see some cool, some cool singers. And it was very exciting and crazy, and we got out before the rain, so
nice.
we did all right.
Well, that is a fun fact. Very cool. Very cool.
Good old 1969. Way back when.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much for coming to Around the Clock and sharing your story. So if someone would like to get a copy, Amazon.com or through your website?
Or my website is deborahburkehenderson.com.
Okay, great. I highly recommend it if you have children who are 4 through 9 years old. It's a fun story. Love the graphics, love the pictures. They just really lend to the story.
They do. I'll tell Omar.
Okay, good. Deborah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching this segment of Around the Clock.